Srdačan pozdrav, poštovani gledatelji. Dobrodošli u još jedno izdanje emisije Izdvojeno. Naša večerašnja tema je surogatstvo. U studiju ugostit ćemo glasnogovornike i sastavljače deklaracije iz Casablanke, dokumenta za globalno ukinuće surogatstva. Deklaraciju je potpisalo više od 100 stručnjaka, među kojima su odvjetnici, liječnici, psiholozi i filozofi iz 75 država svijeta, a objavljena je 3. ožujka 2023. u Casablanki u Maroku. Čast mi je večeras ugostiti Oliviju Maurel, glasnogovornicu deklaracije i ženu koja je rođena putem surogatstva, te doktora Bernarda Garcia, pravnog eksperta te jednog od sastavljača same deklaracije. Miss Maurel and Mr. Larrain, thank you for agreeing to do this interview and welcome to Laudato TV.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, ladies first, as they say.
Thank you.
Let's talk with Ms. Maurel. So you're a child born through surrogacy, yet you are an avid advocate for its abolition.
Yes.
Can you tell our viewers your story, your testimony, and your experience with surrogacy, and why are you opposed to it?
So I think we should start by maybe defining surrogacy for the public, because it's sometimes a bit confusing. There are two types of surrogacy now. We have what we call gestational surrogacy and traditional surrogacy. I'll start with traditional surrogacy because that's the way I was born personally. So in traditional surrogacy, what we do is that we use a surrogate, we use her own eggs, that we then use the commissioning father's sperm or a donor sperm that we then use to create the embryo. In gestational surrogacy, we have the surrogate that is used, unfortunately, and I hate this term and I keep saying it, but we use her as an incubator. We just use the shell. And then inside her, we're going to plant an embryo that is created in a lab by, with the commissioning mother's egg or an egg donation. Or we're going to use the commissioning father's sperm or a sperm donation. So those are the two types of surrogacies today. We have commercial surrogacy as well. So it's a surrogacy in which the surrogate is literally paid. She's given a check to do those 9 months. It can be very expensive. She can be paid $80,000 in America. She can maybe be paid $2,000 euros in Ukraine. And then we have what we call altruistic surrogacy. Once again, I hate the term that they use because there's nothing altruistic in surrogacy, in which the surrogate isn't paid directly, but she is reimbursed of all the fees that are around the surrogacy. So she's reimbursed of her rent, for example. If she's renting a house, her rent is paid, her food is paid, her clothes are paid, everything is paid around. So she's kind of paid indirectly. There is money involved, and unfortunately, it's always a question of money. It's always a poor woman or a poorer woman that is used by a rich couple. It's unfortunately the cases everywhere in the world today. So I'm Olivia. I was born via this traditional surrogacy that I was explaining in the beginning. So my surrogate mother was my birth mother, and she's my biological mother as well. And my commissioning father is my biological father. And I was born 32 years ago in Louisville, Kentucky. I was raised between Florida and France because my commissioning mother is French. And my parents never told me I was born via surrogacy. It was always a secret. We didn't talk about it. They always told me a story about why I was born in America. It was always this beautiful story that they came for work and they loved this film, so I had to be born in the US. So they lied to me all my life. But I always knew inside of me that something was completely off. It was, I looked at my mother and I knew that I had no resemblance to her. She's very, very short. She's more on the brownish skin tone. She's got brown eyes. I'm tall. I'm blonde. I have blue eyes. The things didn't match, and she was very old. So throughout my life, I had these little inches, that gut feeling that something was off. And so around 17 years old, I made some research on Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where the clinics the surrogacy clinics came up on Google. And then everything just clicked in. It was boom. It kind of just, every piece of the puzzle just fit in, and I knew I was born from that particular thing, surrogacy. And that's when I started talking to everyone around me about it. The doctors, my friends, my family, my in-laws, my husband, who's not my husband, but my boyfriend, husband, you know, I just told everyone. And then, but I didn't tell my parents.
But you didn't have the actual proof.
But I didn't have the actual proof yet.
Okay.
And so I just kept telling people this. And it was on my 30th birthday, my mother-in-law, who is my husband's mother, gifted me with a DNA test. And I had, to be honest, I'd never thought about a DNA test. I was just like, this is, I'm like, why is she giving me this? And when she gifted me this DNA test, she gifted it, and she told me, well, this is for all the questions that you've been questioning yourself all your life, because she knew how much I was suffering from the fact that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what 50% of my 50% of my blood was made up of. And so I took the test, and it came back, of course, positive. So I'm largely Lithuanian, I'm largely Norwegian. I have a lot of Balkans blood in my blood as well. Yes, I'm 17.5 from the Balkans. They don't know exactly what country, but I find that interesting. And then I was matched with a cousin, because they take your DNA, you know, they extract it, and then they compare it in the database with other people that have taken the test. And by what miracle, I don't know, a cousin had taken that test, my cousin, and her father, so my uncle. And I was matched with them. And so I contacted my cousin, who then put me in contact with my half-brother, my half-sisters, and then my mother, my biological mother, came into contact with me. So that's my story. I've had a rough life because, unfortunately, when you don't know where you're from, when you have so many questions about yourself, when you don't know who you are really inside.
You feel like you don't belong.
You feel like you don't belong. You don't know where you're coming from. I mean, that's what I always say. When the foundations are not good, you know, of a house, it gets destroyed. It crackles. It gets destroyed within the years, and that's kind of how I felt. The foundations weren't right. And so I had a hard time constructing myself. And I've always been in the search of a mother, unfortunately, because the mother figure that was at home was my commissioning mother, and she didn't have that role. She wasn't really a mother to me. And so I was always looking for that mother figure, and I was trying to fill that void. And eventually, unfortunately, I fell into drugs, alcohol, I fell into medication, I fell into a numerous amounts of things that aren't very good, of course. But I got out of it, and then I met my husband, and then I had my children, and then things got better. But yes, so today I know how much it affects a child because I lived the experience. I know how much it can affect a child to not know where you come from. And I also know how much it can affect a woman because I am also a woman and I am also a mother. So that link that we have with our children is very important. I lived it 3 times. I have 3 children today. And that link is so important. You can only understand when you become a mother. And so to break that bond is just atrocious to me. And that's why I came into contact with the Declaration of Casablanca and Bernard and the whole team. And because he knows how much I was advocating against surrogacy on my social media. And so it was just the perfect chance to find a text that can abolish surrogacy on an international level.
So now we come to the Declaration of Casablanca for the abolition of surrogacy. As I understand, Mr. Larrain, you're one of the coordinators for it. Yes. So can you please tell our audience what is that document, that declaration, and what is the importance of it?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yes, Olivia was saying surrogacy is a global market, okay? Because you can, for example, in France, we don't have surrogacy, but people can go abroad to do this, to perform surrogacy. It was the case of Olivia. And so even if you have like local laws who are against surrogacy, since this is a global market, you have like a global abolition in our position, you know. So it does not exist for the moment like a specific document, legal document of international law that abolish surrogacy. You know, you have many texts of international human rights, but you don't have this. And this is why we think this market, because it's $1 million market in the world, this is money, is expanding, you know. And we have studies that this is going up. So this is our goal is to protect women and children, poor women and children from all over the world from this market, who is very aggressive, you know. So that's why many groups in the world, like we're lawyers, philosophers, people from the medicine, activists, feminist activists, politicians, religious leaders, they had this idea of global abolition, you know. But the thing is, we need like a coherent and a real concrete thing. So we propose this text, which is very, very general text and very like broad. Why? Because all these groups, some of them have their own reasons to be against surrogacy, you know. But how can I say, like the goal is to abolish surrogacy. So that's the important thing. It's like, I don't know, I'm against slavery. You have many reasons to be against slavery, but you need just the treaty, you know, to abolish this. So the first step was this: the experts who proclaim or who invite the world to abolish surrogacy as a first step. And this is not new in the history of the human rights, because some of the big treaties of human rights start like this: a declaration in a city because of given by some people and wherever, and then it went like a legal frame, a political, and then it became a real international convention. So that's our idea. That's why we're here in Croatia. That we want to invite states, to invite people, and also to inform about this surrogacy, because we know that in many countries this is not so well known, but this is going up, even in media, in films and wherever. And sometimes we think they show a fake story about surrogacy, you know. And as a lawyer and the group of lawyers, we know that children, as Olivia was saying, they have a right to know their origins. This is a real right, consecrated by law, international law. They have the right to be educated by their parents, if it is possible. And in the other side, there is no right to have children. You know, you cannot pay somebody to have a children. You don't have a right to have a children. So all these contracts and all this market for us is illegal, and that's why and they are like taking advantage that there is no this kind of text, international legal text, to progress. They are saying, oh, we have to create a frame. For us, like the international law is against, as I was saying before. But I think the circumstance of the current circumstance of this market makes that we need this text to be a real international and binding text.
While researching for this show, I have found, let's say, two opinions on the opposite side, two different opinions on the opposite side. Some people are just going to say surrogacy is a great scientific breakthrough. It allows couples that can't have kids to start a family, to live a happy life, and other which are more of a, let's say, part of a scientific community. They say horrible things happen during surrogacies, and they say kids from different countries are not allowed to be citizens of that country for various political or legal reasons. But this is because it's not very well regulated.
Yes.
It's all in all a good thing, but it just needs to be better and more heavily regulated. What would you say to these two, let's say, claims that it's a good thing or it needs to be more heavily regulated and not abolished?
Okay, so for me it's not a good thing. I explained it before, because children have the right to know their origins. Women in the surrogacy market, women are reduced to their reproductive condition. You know, when you, at least in French law, if you see the contract, the obligation they have, it will be not legal in a normal labor contract. You know, it's like yeah, it's not like a good thing for women, for their dignity, and also for the children. You know, the children are the object of a contract. You know, they put a price for these things, for this for these contracts. You know, you cannot like honestly say like this is good for human beings. What kind of society we are trying to establish? You know, and also we have like. They're selecting the children they want to have. They are, okay, I want a girl, I want a boy. What happens if he's ill? In Ukraine, we saw during the war, a lot of children were abandoned in orphanage. We have contacts there with the orphanage, with politicians. So for me, of course, I understand the desire. These persons can have to have children, but first of all, it's not a right. And then I live in the Middle East, you know, and you have many children who are waiting for be educated, and of course in other countries in the world, refugees, we have many people in the refugee camps and wherever. So I think we have to be more creative. If people can have, or they want to care about children, they have many forms, okay? And for me, you cannot, it's not, in the legal point of view and also the moral point of view, you cannot perform surrogacy. And then for me, the will to reframe or to create a legal frame, it's also not possible because, as I was saying before, okay, markets. You have many types of markets in the economy, you know, and some of them they exist as surrogacy, but they are abolished. You know, you talk about human trafficking now. Surrogacy it will be in one of the European directives of human trafficking. Okay. So that's a good thing for us, for society, because there's another idea. This is not a political thing. It's human rights of human dignity. It's not just from the left or from the right or from the church or from wherever. It's for everybody. It's very important. That's why we are here, even if you don't. I think in Croatia this is not so famous, this practice. Yeah. So when people say like we are going to frame surrogacy, it's also in a legal perspective. It's very difficult because. What kind of couples or single persons or I don't even companies in the future? What are the rights of the surrogate? You know, so it's very difficult. And the Conference of the Hague, which is an institution who a little bit like us, they are trying to propose a legal frame international to regulate surrogacy. They have been working for 10 years, and we don't have anything. Even in a legal perspective, political perspective, of course, ethical perspective, it is better to abolish. You know, as I was saying, you have some markets, human trafficking, drugs, whatever. You have there, this market exists, but they have to be abolished and persecuted. So it's the same thing. I know that. Maybe you can add something.
No. I was just going to add. There's no ethical way of selling children and buying children. There's no ethical way of renting a woman. There's no ethical way, just like there's no ethical way of selling organs. There's no ethical way of using slaves. Those are just basic human rights. And I'm sad that we're at a point in time where we have to remind people that is just a basic human right. We don't sell human adults forced as slaves, so we don't sell babies. And we don't rent wombs. That was just the point I was going to add. Yeah.
I would like to ask you, I've seen some of your interviews and your talk in the Czech parliament, and you're talking about the intergenerational damage that surrogacy can inflict on families. So there goes the argument about happy life and with surrogacy. But I would like for our viewers to understand surrogacy did not just damage your life.
No.
It affected the life of your entire family.
Yes. And
more importantly, of your children.
Of course.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. When I'm a mother of 3, like I said, my daughter is my first, she's 5 years old today. And unfortunately, she suffers from the same trauma of abandonment that I've been through. She's always begging to be with me. She's always scared that I'm going to leave her. She's always saying, "Oh, Mommy, do you love me?" She's always craving that, that I tell her that I'm not going to abandon her. Like, sometimes she even comes to me and she's like, "Mom, you'll never leave me, you'll never abandon me." And I've never used those words with her because I know how much it can hurt her. And so that I've lived through when I was younger. And that I've transmitted to my daughter. The second thing is rejection. Unfortunately, I've also have a problem with the rejection. Every time I get rejected, you know, I kind of just close off. That's how I used to be, because now I'm a lot better, of course. But I used to be closed off. I would go in a corner and just cry it out and just be by myself. And, you know, sometimes I would unfortunately, you know, start scarifying. It was terrible when I was younger. But my son, who is my second, and I love him to death, and I will do anything for that, for my children. But he as well suffers from that little rejection trauma. He, when you say no, you know, he's a bit rejected. He'll go in a corner and he'll start scratching himself. He'll start rubbing himself. So I see the exact traumas that I've been through that I unfortunately transmitted to my children, that they live, and that I'm trying to help with. I'm trying to help my children, of course, to get past them. And it's getting better. My daughter's 5 now. She's getting a little bit better, but it's still present. You can still, like, she's always asking me, Mom, do you love me? Mom, do you love me? Mom, do you love me? Of course I love you. I die for you. I do anything for you. So yeah, it didn't just affect me. Of course, it was difficult. I had a very difficult life. I didn't take the best decisions, but unfortunately this has affected my children as well. So I don't know at what point I transmitted this to them, but I do think there's this transgenerational emotion thing that we just pass on to our children in the womb.
I would like to know from the start of your, let's say, campaign against surrogacy, what has been the question is for both of you. What has been your experience? Did you get support from people, or have you experienced any obstacles and backlash? Because we are talking about lobbying and huge industry, which is
we're talking about, in 2022, it was a $14 billion industry market, $14 billion. And in 2032, it's programmed to be $134 billion. So it's growing exponentially. I personally have had, I'm a lot on social media, so X, TikTok, Instagram. I have had a lot of people that are against me, but to be honest, I've had a lot of people that didn't know what surrogacy was, that had no idea it existed. And then when they listen to me, they're just like, okay, well, how can someone be for surrogacy? When you start explaining to people why surrogacy is wrong, and we have to, unfortunately, they understand. People are smart. It's just that that the lobby is so important, that the lobby is inside the media. They're inside influencers. They pay influencers to promote surrogacy. They go in the media. They pay journalists to promote surrogacy. They go pay politicians sometimes to promote surrogacy. So they're everywhere. They have a lot of money that they can inject into the commercializing of surrogacy. And so I thought when I was going to take this stance against surrogacy, I was going to take a lot of backlash, a lot of hard comments. I've had some, but in the vast majority, I've had a lot of support, a lot. So for me, it's been a great experience. I've had a couple of couples that have come to me that have used surrogacy and that insult me on social media, but I have this army of women and men also that are behind me, that are protecting me from these people. So every time I have a comment, woof, they get they get attacked by all of the people that are so protective of me, and I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah, I think we are doing the right thing. So this is good for us. We are. Of course, we are going to have difficulties because, as you were saying, this is a market, very aggressive market. This is money, this is interest. And I remember when in a debate, we were talking with a director of a clinic who were doing this. He told us, this room can be plenty of children who were born from surrogacy in my clinic or something like this. And I was very calm, and I told him, like, just to know for the public, you are earning money with this, we are not. You know, Olivia, she's very brave because, okay, we are lawyers, we are doing this. This is a little bit theory, politics, philosophy, but this is the real life. You know, this is like they can show, and they can show like a romantic story of surrogacy, and we don't judge. people like who are doing this, because the market proposed this, and maybe they are not so aware of the consequences of their acts, and this is not, in a certain way, our problem. The problem is this society we are going to create for the future. And so yes, and for the support, as Olivia, you were talking, we started like last year, because the Declaration of Casablanca, it was 3 March of 23. And as I was telling before, there were many groups or many people who were thinking about this, like, we need an international convention. So now we are proposing, if it's like a collective work, and we have many contacts in many countries. A lot of people are contacting us. We have been invited to some countries, here in Croatia, the Czech Republic, the European, Brussels. We are going to the United Nations in March for a meeting, for an event called Poverty and Surrogacy, which is very interesting because, of course, this regards poor women in the world. The United Nations is the international community, and we also have a very, very nice support from Pope Francis, because we went to the Vatican last year for some meetings with the, I don't know what's the name of, diplomats, officials working like on the, not like the Holy See, like the state of the Vatican, and we asked them, and then maybe Olivia will tell us after this. She wrote a letter to the Pope. You were okay. So this was very, very nice for us, because even if this is not a religious thing, as I was saying before, I live and I work in the Middle East, so we have a lot of Muslims, and also they listen to us with respect and with astonishment. Attention, because the West in these things, these markets are not. People they think this is not good. So, I think we are doing the good things, and we've got a lot of support. Important. Yeah.
Yes, we've got a lot of support. We're very lucky, I have to say.
As Mr. Larrain started to mention, as I understand, you wrote a letter to Pope Francis.
Yes.
And can you tell our audience a bit about that? Why did you do it, and how did he respond?
Well, Bernard came to me one day and he said, he told me, well, why don't we write to the Pope telling your story? And I was just like, okay, well, let's do it. So I wrote up the letter. He added a little bit of corrections, of course, because I'm not, like I said in the letter that I wrote to him, I'm atheist, so there are a few words that I wasn't using correctly within the Catholic, vocabulary. And so I wrote to him because I knew that the Catholic Church was against surrogacy. But what happened before that is that, I don't know if you were aware of the Ana Obregón case. It's this lady, this famous Spanish actress who's 68 years old, that went to Florida and used her deceased son's sperm in a surrogate to have a baby. So her son is dead. She used the sperm of her dead son to have a baby. And the story is horrible, because I mean that child is going to grow up in a household. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah. Like, grandmother is my mommy, but my father's dead, and the whole thing is horrible. But what happened was that the Radio Cope in Spain, who is the radio of the bishops of Spain, asked Ana to come, and they interviewed her. And the interview was very beautiful, was very pro-surrogacy, was very, they were understanding, like, it's beautiful, like, I can have a child from my deceased son. Can you imagine this beautiful? And it annoyed me, and it annoyed Bernard as well, I think, that a radio that is supposed to represent the church and the church's word and Pope Francis' words went against what the church really believes in, and that is banning surrogacy. And so, so we wrote to him. I wrote to him very simply. I told him my story. I said that I was an atheist. I said that I told him what happened on a Radio Cope, and that I wished that he took a stance publicly on surrogacy, which he did. a few weeks later, on January 8th. So I wrote to him mid-December. And on January 8th, he took a stance publicly saying that he was for the universal abolishment of surrogacy, the exact words that we use in the Declaration of Casablanca. And yes, and that it's a form of human trafficking. You know, he explained it very well. And yeah, so we are invited to meet him. He asked for me to come and meet him for a meeting on the 4th of April, 2024. So that's great. I'll be able to speak to him about surrogacy, child trafficking, and women's rights.
Also, like the Pope, for this idea came also because the Pope, as far as I know, he speaks a lot about new forms of slavery, new forms of threats of capitalism, you know. So for me, this market, this very aggressive market, is like an example of the things he's against, you know. Like he's proposing like taking care of people, poor migrants, the nature with the ecology. And here we have like something that the church maybe, or the Holy Father as a leader, political and religious leader and a public figure of first level, can help, and we were a little bit sure he will listen to us, because when you listen and when you see the Pope on the television, I've never met him. I think he will love to know the story, which is very unique, because we have a lot of stories like, oh, this very famous actress or these famous people, wherever they went to go to perform surrogacy, I don't know where. And we have to know other stories, and leaders have to know, and that's why we're very happy to share this project with you.
At the end, in short, we've covered the why. Why should we abolish slavery? I meant to say.
We're not too far away from it, unfortunately.
Abolish surrogacy, but we didn't cover how. Can you explain in a few short sentences what can we do to go to the place where we want to go, and that is the complete abolishment of surrogacy?
Yes, that's a very good question. The thing is, we want to gather countries, states in the international community to propose this international convention. We believe in this project. We think it's possible. It's very ambitious, of course, because as we were saying before, in the other side they have a lot of money and a lot of interest. And also there are people who are doing these things in good faith, I imagine, but they are wrong. And so, to answer to your question, we need to convince leaders to propose this. And you, maybe people who are watching us at their homes here in Croatia, you can follow us you can follow Olivia, you can follow Casablanca Declaration on social media. You can also, for example, we're talking also with some people, you have to be informed about this, you know, because there will be a film or a Netflix series or wherever, and they will present maybe the other side of surrogacy, you know, not the real side we are proposing. And yes, we think this is true, this is a good thing we can to do, and the story, the human rights story, shows that these kind of things start like this, you know. For example, you were talking about slavery. When you, this film, Amazing Race, you know, this guy, MP from UK, every year he presents the bill, and the market was so big, and even like leaders, they had this interest with the slavery market in America, also in the Caribbean, and they reached to abolish slavery, you know. So each period of the story, every person in the world has to propose has to think how to help this kind of. We are just speaking more, but you can talk at schools. Somebody in the Middle East contacted me this morning because they want to put this in a book, you know. So everything can be done, and this kind of program. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of levels. There's the educational level, where we need to start educating the population, so normal people. Then we have to act on a state level. We have to ban it within the states. Politicians have to take measures to stop surrogacy, to ban it within their country, but also stop people from going abroad and bringing back the children. and we need to stop it at an international level. So getting together, many countries getting together and taking a treaty and making a treaty against surrogacy and for the abolishment.
Well, Ms. Maurel and Mr. Larrain, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us. Much of luck and God's providence in your future work. And say hello to Pope Francis.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
We will.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evo, poštovani gledatelji, bilo je ovo još jedno izdanje emisije Izdvojeno. Hvala vam na vašoj pozornosti, srdačan pozdrav i Bog vas blagoslovio.
Iskoristimo ovu korizmu za borbu protiv svoje oholosti, pozvao je Papa Franjo na audijenciji prvoj koja je nakon zime održana na trgu Svetog Petra. Pri dolasku na trg Papa je iz papamobila blagoslivljao oduševljeno mnoštvo koje ga je pozdravilo pjesmom, usklicima i pljeskom. Tema nagovora bio je posljednji od grešnih poroka u nizu papinih kateheza o manama i vrlinama. Papa Franjo je na početku rekao da je još malo prehlađen, pa je njegovo promišljanje pročitao otac Pierluigi Giroli iz državnog tajništva Svete stolice. Stari Grci, pojasnio je Papa, oholost su definirali izrazom koji bi se mogao prevesti kao pretjerana blještavost. Podsjetio je da je oholost među porocima koje Isus nabraja među zlima, koji izlaze iz čovjekova srca. Grijeh oholosti je blizak grešnoj mani taštine o kojoj je Sveti Otac govorio prošloga tjedna. Ali ako je taština bolest čovjekova ega, ona je tek dječja bolest u usporedbi s pustoši koju može ostaviti oholost. Oholost je velika kraljica svih grijeha. Nije slučajno da Dante u svojoj božanskoj komediji oholost smješta u prvi krug čistilišta. Onaj koji je potpao po taj grijeh daleko je od Boga, a popravljanje toga zla iziskuje vrijeme i napor, više nego bilo koja druga bitka na koju je kršćanin pozvan. Papa Franjo poručio je da se u tome zlu krije duboki grijeh, apsurdna težnja da se bude poput Boga. Grijeh Adama i Eve u svakom je pogledu grijeh oholosti, jer im je napasnik rekao da će biti kao bogovi. Kao primjer, Papa je izdvojio apostola Petra koji se razmetao svojom prokušanom vjernošću. Ali vrlo brzo je doživio da je poput ostalih i da ga obuzima strah pred smrću za koju niti slutio nije da može biti tako blizu. I tako će drugi Petar, onaj koji se ne drži visoko nego lije gorke suze, biti ozdravljen od Isusa i konačno će biti prikladan da drži teret crkve na svojim plećima. Spasenje je povezano s poniznošću, pravim lijekom za svaki čin oholosti. Papa je zaključio riječima apostola Jakova koji svojoj zajednici rastrganoj unutarnjim trljenjima koje su plod oholosti piše: Bog se oholima protivi, a poniznima daje milost. U pozdravu vjernicima talijanskog govornog područja, koji je sam pročitao, Papa je pozvao da se u ovim korizmenim danima nastavimo hrabro zalagati u skidanju svojih maski, da bismo se čitavim srcem vratili Bogu koji nas ljubi vječnom ljubavlju. Također je ponovno pozvao na molitvu za stanovnike koji trpe strahote rata u Ukrajini i svetoj zemlji, kao i u svim drugim dijelovima svijeta.
11. pastoralno-katehetski kolokvij za svećenike s temom Idi pa i ti čini tako. Crkva u susret osobama s invaliditetom i njihovim obiteljima. Održan je u Nadbiskupijskom pastoralnom institutu u Zagrebu. Kolokvij se uklapa u širi kontekst pastoralnog ciklusa usmjerenog osobama s invaliditetom i njihovim obiteljima, koji je otvoren na nacionalnim studijskim danima za djelatnike u obiteljskom pastoralu i pastoralu osoba s invaliditetom prošle godine. Razlozi pokretanja ciklusa bila su slaba uključenost osoba s invaliditetom u crkvene zajednice zbog postojanja prepreka i predrasuda, nedovoljno razvijen pastoral osoba s invaliditetom i njihovih obitelji i izostanak sudjelovanja izobrazbe pastoralnih djelatnika.
Da župnici vide koje su mogućnosti rada, prepoznati te osobe, a onda i obitelji, jer postoji tu puno i predrasuda i neke nesigurnosti, možda i nekog sažaljenja koje nije ispravno, a osim što su objekti te osobe i te obitelji mogu biti i subjekti i obogatiti sve nas, pa smo kroz ova 2 dana imali mnoge goste i terminološko ispravno postavljanje stvari, onda i goste iz Italije, kako radi se u talijanskoj biskupskoj konferenciji crkvi u Italiji, tako da ovdje iskustva i svjedočanstva samih osoba s invaliditetom, primjeri dobre prakse na župama, kako da su i oni, Krist dolazi svima, svi smo mi jedna obitelj, evo to je važno razumjeti, tako da uz zahvalu i podršku tim obiteljima želi smo senzibilizirati i educirati svećenike da mogu još više učiniti u svojim župama, u svojim biskupijama.
3 glavna cilja su senzibilizacija ponajprije crkvene javnosti o problematici osoba s invaliditetom, uz ukazivanje na sve što ne mogu pridonijeti i što se s njima treba učiniti za njih da budu aktivni dionici crkve i njezinog poslanja. Razvoj pastoralne skrbi osoba s invaliditetom i djece s teškoćama u razvoju njihovih obitelji, uz imenovanje povjerenstva i povjerenika za takav pastoral u što više biskupija, te uključivanje što više župa uz veće uključivanje redovničkih zajednica i suradnju s udrugama, pokretima i zajednicama. Na kolokviju su predstavljeni izazovi, ali i iskustva dobre prakse rada s osobama s invaliditetom.
Uz svećenike i svakog dekanata predstavnik, tu su i udruge koje su se predstavile, tu su osobe s invaliditetom, tu su vjeroučitelji, tu su osobe i stručne koji su bili i predavači. Uistinu široko imali smo dakle ovaj teorijski dio, ali i praktični, malo gdje su konkretno progovorili kako napraviti neke i radionice, kako i tu misu animirati da oni budu dionici, sudionici slavlja, zajedničkog slavlja koje Krist uistinu dijeli sakramente svima nama i da mogu svi sudjelovati, pa tako i osobe s invaliditetom i njihove obitelji, da se ne osjećaju same i zapostavljene, ostavljene, nego da bez neke teškoće dođu i budu dio župne zajednice.
Pastoralni ciklus provode Vijeće HBK za život i obitelj i Vijeće HBK za lajke, u okviru kojeg djeluje pododbor za osobe s invaliditetom. Stoga su se ove godine ta 2 vijeća pridružila Vijeću HBK za katehizaciju i novu evangelizaciju te Vijeću HBK za kler u organizaciji ovog događaja.